Hello, my name's Dr. Mike Scanlan, and I'm really pleased to be here today just talking to you guys about something I think that could be really helpful. Um, I work as a mental health um, consultant around mental health issues and well-being, and I work with loads and loads of people in schools, with young people in universities, and I work with some adults as well. And the model that I think really fits what we're all going through during COVID-19 is called the DNA hyphen little v, DNAV. And I've taken this opportunity today, with help from the good people at Aspire, to just talk to you today about how I believe we might be able to use the DNAV to sort of help in terms of seeing it as something of a life compass. And so let's just tell you a little bit about the model. So the model comes from Australia, and it sort of was born out of this frustration that those of us who have been practicing mindfulness for years and years and years look at the science, we look at the neurology of the teenage young person's brain, anything from about sort of 12, 13, all the way up to about 25. And what we see is this rapidly changing brain that really would be perfect to be helped by being able to be just a little bit more mindful. And the thing about what mindfulness perhaps brings us when we are young, and as you can see, I am no longer young, but I wish I'd known this stuff, because what mindfulness actually brings us is a space between stimulus and response. So if you imagine something happens in our lives, and instead of responding wisely, sensibly, with fun, looking for vitality, exciting stuff, sometimes something happens, we misconstrue it, and we react, boom, in a second. And it's that reaction that there's no gap at all. It's that reaction that leads to so many of the things that we get wrong in our young person's mind. And quite often, the things we get wrong don't add up to a whole hill of beans. People overlook it and we move on. But sometimes when we react to stimulus that shows up, and if that stimulus is characterized by fear or desperation or anger or just stress, then sometimes the stuff that we do impacts on us for the rest of our lives. And I think about people I've worked with who have reacted angrily, and I do quite a lot of work with offenders actually. And quite often when I look at their history and I talk to them and I look at what started the whole ball rolling into this really difficult life, then it's this immediate reaction, rather than, as the great Viktor Frankl, here's a book everyone should read, The Man's Search for Meaning. And in there he says that between stimulus and response, there's a space. And it's in that space where our freedom lies. And what the DNAV does for us is it gives us this wonderful sense of a life compass. And as you see from the diagram, it kind of looked a bit like a compass with the arrow in the middle. And the arrow pretty much comes from the V space. So let's start there. So the V in the DNAV really stands for the word values, but you could call it vitality as well. Vitality and values, the two go together quite nicely. And essentially what we're beginning to recognize is that all of you, me included, we have a very kind of powerful set of values, the stuff that really matters to us. And the DAV works on this concept that as long as the decisions we're making, the way we think, the way we act, the way we behave, the way we respond, stimulus response, takes us towards the human being that we would really like to be, then we're not going to go far wrong. And most of us have very similar values, and we have some that aren't so similar. We have some real idiosyncratic stuff that really matters to us, But on the whole, we have this pretty powerful set of values. And most human beings, in terms of values, the human being I want to be is someone who makes a difference. The human being I want to be is someone that is there for their friends. The human being I want to be wants to succeed in life. The human being I would love to choose to be is affiliative and fun and has a good, happy life. And the human being I want to be is in touch with those values. So there's the life compass. And during COVID-19, I think we all sit back and we look, and everything is changing around us. Our aspirations perhaps are being challenged. Our hopes are being challenged. There is fear, constant fear. What if we have a second spike? What if? What if the jobs market changes completely? What if I'm not able to study at university and have the university experience that I hoped I would have? What if? Now, the brain hates uncertainty, and all anxiety is predicated upon a sense of uncertainty and a loss of control, aka COVID-19. So what we're going to try and do today is look at how we can find a degree of certainty that is always there as long as our values stay. And our values probably haven't changed. I know mine haven't. Most of the young people I work with at the moment, the one thing that hasn't changed is the stuff that was important to them before is as important now, if not even more important, because a good pandemic like this does not make us think about what matters. So let's take yourselves through the N first, the N of the DNAV. So we know the V is the values. The N is our noticer part of our brain. At the moment during COVID, our noticer part of our brain has had to be switched on for protection, hasn't it? We've had to notice, do I need to wear a mask? Oh my God, am I socially distanced from this person? Perhaps I haven't been socially distanced from this person and I'm going back to my home where I have parents who are more at risk than me. And so my noticer has to notice the tap and the need to wash hands. But the noticer perhaps starts over noticing because of that fear. And its bias starts to go only to the stuff of life that is constituted by threat and worry. And we find ourselves noticing threat and worry. And that over noticing of the threat and worry starts to have a reaction. And then our noticer starts to notice tightness in the shoulders, tightness in the chest, and we start to experience increased levels of health anxiety. Why wouldn't we? And then, so our noticer notices outside stuff and it notices inside stuff. But if we're mindful of how my noticer is working, we can start to steer it to also notice joy, happiness, fun, prospects, urges, needs. We don't just have to get stuck. So it's this sense of, right, after listening to Mike, I'm going to be a bit more in touch with my noticer. And we also have an advisor. Now, the advisor is really our talking head, the voices, the thoughts that come constantly into our mind. Now, the problem again during something like COVID is that our noticer and our advisor kind of gang up on us. And so what we find is that the thoughts that we're having become so negative if we're not careful, become so threat oriented that we start to lose our sense of joy. And we start to think about doing stuff and we start to get our sense of hope back. And perhaps our advisor steps in there and says, it's all going to be rubbish. There's no point. It's waste of time. No point doing anything. Might as well just give up. And I think our job at this point is to sack that noticer almost and to say, I hear what you're saying, but if I do that, it's not going to work for me in terms of taking me towards that V place, values. So the most important and powerful thing we can do during COVID-19 is start to gather our senses and mindfully step into that discoverer space. And in the discoverer space is where we experiment, where we try stuff, where we listen to what others are saying and we think, do you know what, I'll give that a go. And the discoverer space is where we feel able to start to reintroduce ourselves back into living, functioning, enjoying, smiling, learning. Because we learn in our discoverer space. You know, when we learn anything, we step into something new, we let it in, we mindfully peruse it, and some of it sticks and some of it doesn't. But if we're not ever in that discoverer space because we're stuck in the noticer and the advisor, we're not going to learn. We're not going to be able to move forward. And the DNAV, if we just upload it onto our phones, we just take the diagram and we remind ourselves really simply that in times of uncertainty, we need that life compass. We need our noticer to keep us safe. We need our better advisor. So sometimes we can find a better advisor. We can stop and say, who do I know that would act as a brilliant advisor for me? And it might be one of your mates, or it might be David Attenborough, or it might be somebody off the telly, but it'll be somebody that connects with you. It might be a parent, it might be a teacher, it might be a colleague, it might be one of your friends. But maybe they might temporarily, just by stopping and saying, well, do you know, my rubbish advisor is saying there's no point. What does the better me say? Me firing on all cylinders. Listen to that advisor. But above all, when you step into that discoverer space, just check in. Is what I'm doing taking me towards the human being I would like to be? And if the answer is yes, move in that direction mindfully, relaxedly. And what we find is that we start to live again. And anxiety starts to take a bit of a back seat. Bearing in mind that we drive the life bus. Our thoughts, our fears, our memories, our doubts don't. And this enables us to step forward, move forward through life a little bit more easily. And if you're interested in this stuff and you like it, then if you go online and you Google DNAV teenagers, load of free stuff will come up. One of my favorites is the Game of Life. I'd encourage everybody to do that one. So I hope you found this kind of useful. I hope I've interested you enough for some of you to go off and explore the DNAV approach. But above all, move closer to what matters and you won't go far wrong. So thank you so much for just spending this little bit of time with me, and goodbye.